Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. If you're just joining us, regular viewers of this show know that I use this last segment to answer viewer questions that come into my email box. To send me your questions, simply send an email to, should be at the bottom of the screen, questions@cooperativekids.com. There we go. And I'll select various questions. Perhaps I'll pick yours for a future episode. So I've invited two emotional health experts to help me provide some answers to this interesting question. Dr. Megan Hudson has extensive postdoctoral training in the field of childhood development and disorders and functional neurology. Susan Epstein is a certified brief strategic family therapist and trained in the Family Therapy Institute at the University of Miami. Now, that's the kind of power I need to help me answer this question. So let's go to the question now. The question is, professionals like you who promote positive parenting methods are actually part of a sinister plot to criminalize parents who choose to spank their children. How can you justify being part of this dark movement? So I got that question, and I thought it was pretty interesting because it was a reminder for me that there are people who still feel strongly about corporal punishment. But that aside, I think these people and the people who are angry about positive parenting movement I think they're kind of afraid they're losing their power. Or parents are losing the power. And I know a lot of people talk about parent choice, that the parents should be allowed to discipline their children the way they see fit. I'm confronted with people with this opinion all the time. I hold nothing against these folks. It's their perception, it's their opinion. And when they ask me about that, they say, well, automatically, you're part of this whole movement. And I tell them that, I'm doing this on my own. I'm not part of this, network where we're all gonna, what's it called? We're not gonna flash parent. We're not all gonna show up in Grand Central Station and positive parent everybody, to be kind of silly about it. But what I'll do is when I'm confronted with a parent who admits that they spank, who admits that they use corporal punishment, I don't judge them. They're doing the best they can. They're probably just repeating the cycle. They're doing what the parents did. That's what we did as parents. So what I ask them to do is move those tools over in the toolbox that aren't real effective, and make room for other stuff that's far more powerful that I teach and that you teach, that parent educators teach, to allow them to get more results from their parenting and rather than what's going on. So let me ask the two of you, what's your opinion on that question, on the whole sinister movement? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's, I look at that and say, what about the underlying effect on children who are being either beaten or shamed somehow? Neurologically, what's going on there? To me, that's what's interesting. I'm not sure about the sinister movement, but I'm very interested in what happens to a developing brain.
Phooey. I say phooey because, and this is what people say to me, so I'm going to play the other side. Phooey. I was spanked, and I turned out just fine.
And I can tell by your attitude how fine you are.
So what do we say to parents who say that, I was spanked and I can still put my pants on just like you can, so don't give me that neurology stuff.
Okay, well, neurology is not new because it's been around as long as people have been around, right? But there's a lot more understanding. The 90s was the decade of the brain when they invented the MRI machine, so a lot of information has come to light over the past 15, 20 years especially. And one of the things is this clear understanding that the increase of stress hormones that are produced in a child, in anybody, in any human, when they're under threat, when they are in the fight or flight situation, which is a very, trying to create survival. So you're either going to run away or you're going to fight back. Your sympathetic nervous system is cranked up when you're under threat. The result is that you have a whole lot of adrenaline and cortisol is produced in your brain, and that's very damaging to developing neurons. So when a child is feeling like they're really threatened for their survival, this does not have a good impact in the long-term development of the brain and the nervous system. It's very hard to learn.
A bit easy to understand, especially for professionals like us. I want to throw a question at you, Susan. What do we what do we say to the parents? What do you say to parents that you run into in your practice who don't know what else to do, and that this is what they use, spanking and hitting?
I ask them, first of all, how it's working for them, and you usually say it's not because the behavior hasn't, we haven't been able to make this better. Whatever I'm punishing them for, I'm doing it over and over and over again. Whatever I'm spanking them for, I'm doing it over, and that's why I'm sitting in your office. I said, well, how would you like to have this be fun and easy to be a parent? And they're like, well, yeah. So I have a saying, it's called green parenting, parent with less energy. And what if we could use brain psychology? So from the parent point of view, not so much, Megan's talking about from the child's point of view and the negative impact on the child. Sometimes parents can't hear that because they're so defensive about what they want to use. I say, well, how would you like it to be for you? This must be very stressful for you to have to be like always after your child and spanking them. And if we could figure out a way to do this psychologically, how would you like that? So coming from that angle.
And that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I found is that a lot of parents are afraid their child comes home from school, and especially if and this is classic for a family who's displaced or moved over here to the United States. And they come from a country where autocratic parenting is very normal. And that means whippings or spankings or whatever. It is a normal way of life. And the child goes to school, and it only takes them a couple weeks to discover that their parents can't do that to them anymore because somehow they heard about DCF and everything. And now these parents are afraid their child's going to come into the home and say, you can't hit me anymore, I'm in charge. So what would you say to a parent who says something like that?
Well, it's almost like needing to hit a reset button and talk about, look at negotiating, talk about shared ideas of what needs to be happening in the home. And bringing the kids in on the conversation of what type of consequences do there need to be, that they may have a say. Maybe they don't have a say, but at least put it on the table and explore what the possibilities are.
Well, you stumbled on, I'm not stumbled, you actually mentioned something very important, which is consequences. Because oftentimes in a home that believes in spanking and corporal punishment, they use punishment. That's their primary tool. But when we teach them what you just said, and what you spend a great deal of time teaching parents, is consequences. I always say that punishment demands obedience, whereas consequences permit choice,
Right.
allowing the child to make a choice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the more choice that we give them, it's actually transferring power over to them the right way. But parents are afraid that if I give my kid too much power, then I have no power, right?
Well, it's also really about teaching. You know, the word discipline comes from disciple, which is really a teaching opportunity.
That's right.
So the word discipline for parents at home is it's your whole toolbox that you use and you choose selectively to teach your children, as Megan said. And so through that teaching, you can have all kinds of array of tools, but it's important to pick the right tools, the important and the effective tools. Listen, thank you so much for being on my show, Susan and Dr. Hudson. I really appreciate it, and I hope that our viewer got an answer to their question. Now, today